Captain Threxnell of the Galactic Military Academy stood before the observation deck, his 4 eyes blinking in complete disbelief. The data streaming across the holographic display had to be malfunctioning. It simply had to be. Run the diagnostics again, he barked at Lieutenant Voss, his mandibles clicking nervously. There is absolutely no way this is accurate. Voss, a 6-limbed Krell with far more patience than Threxnell possessed at this particular moment, tapped her datapad with 2 of her secondary arms. Sir, I have run the diagnostics 17 times. The readings are correct. Cadet Harper Reeves emerged from Sector 9 approximately 43 minutes ago. Sector 9, Threxnell repeated slowly, as if saying it again would somehow make the situation less catastrophic. The acid rain zone. The one with the predators that can dissolve bone plating in under 6 seconds. That would be the one, sir. And you're telling me the human just walked out? Technically, sir, she jogged. Her vitals indicate she maintained an elevated heart rate consistent with recreational exercise. Threxnell felt a headache forming behind his primary eyes. This was exactly why he had voted against accepting humans into the academy. Everyone else thought they were ready. Everyone else thought that just because humans had passed the basic cognitive and physical assessments, they could handle proper military training. Nobody listened to him. Nobody ever listened to him. The survival assessment was supposed to be challenging, yes. Difficult, absolutely. But survivable. They dropped cadets on Verith Prime, a Class 7 Deathworld, to test their ability to endure, adapt, and overcome hostile environments. Most species managed to find shelter, signal for extraction, within the standard 72-hour window, and return with valuable lessons about resourcefulness and humility. Most species did not return with what the preliminary scans were indicating Harper Reeves had brought back. Tell me about the biosignature readings again, Threxnell said, rubbing his temples with his manipulation tentacles. The ones that make no sense whatsoever. Voss pulled up another display. Cadet Reeves appears to have bonded with a juvenile Verith razorwing. You know, the apex predator native to the northern continent. The one whose neurotoxin we use in sedation protocols, because it is literally too dangerous to synthesize artificially. A pet, Threxnell said flatly. The human made a pet out of something that killed 3 Chromag warriors last cycle. It would appear so, sir. And what's this about a tan? Voss looked uncomfortable, which was saying something for a species that communicated discomfort through color changes in their exoskeleton. She was currently cycling through what could only be described as confused magenta. Sir, according to the medical scanner, Cadet Reeves has experienced prolonged exposure to Verith Prime's ultraviolet radiation. Her melanin levels have increased significantly. When I asked her about it, she said, and I quote, "Oh yeah, the weather was gorgeous, so I worked on my base tan." Threxnell stared at her. The weather was gorgeous. On a Class 7 Deathworld, where the ambient temperature regularly exceeds 50 degrees Celsius. Yes, sir. I need a drink. Several drinks. Do we have any of that Betelgeusian whiskey left in the officers' lounge? Sir, it is 10:00 hours. I am aware of what time it is, Lieutenant. Before Voss could respond, the debriefing room doors hissed open, and Harper Reeves walked in with the casual confidence of someone who had just returned from a pleasant vacation rather than a 72-hour ordeal on one of the most hostile planets in charted space. She was indeed noticeably darker than her Academy file photos, her skin having taken on a golden bronze hue. Her regulation uniform was torn in several places, hastily repaired with what appeared to be plant fibers. She carried a standard emergency pack on one shoulder, and on the other shoulder sat a creature that made Threxnell's survival instinct scream. The razor wing was about the size of a Terran house cat, covered in iridescent scales that shifted from deep purple to electric blue depending on the angle of the light. Its wings were folded against its body, but Threxnell could see the razor-sharp edges that gave the species its name. 3 pairs of eyes tracked his movements with predatory focus. Its tail, tipped with the famous neurotoxin barb, swayed gently back and forth. It was, objectively speaking, adorable in the way that baby apex predators often were before they grew large enough to kill you. Cadet Reeves, Threxnell began, trying to keep his voice steady. What exactly is that? This is Spitfire, sir, Harper said brightly, reaching up to scratch the razor wing under its chin. The creature made a sound somewhere between a purr and a growl. We're buddies now. You named it Spitfire. Well, yeah. She kept spitting acid at me for the first day, until we came to an understanding. Seemed appropriate. An understanding, Threxnell repeated. He was doing a lot of repeating today. With a razor wing. A creature with a brain the size of a walnut and instincts that amount to eat, kill, repeat. Harper shrugged, which made Spitfire adjust her position slightly. She is actually pretty smart once you get to know her. I think she was just hangry. Aren't you, girl? Yes you are. Yes you are. The deadly predator responded to Harper's baby talk by nuzzling against her cheek. Threxnell felt his lunch trying to make a reappearance. Cadet, regulations clearly state that no biological specimens are to be removed from assessment worlds without proper authorization and containment protocols. Oh, don't worry, sir. I filled out Form 27-B for exotic species acquisition. Submitted it remotely from my emergency beacon. Got approval from the Xenobiology department about 6 hours ago. Voss checked her datapad. She is correct, sir. Dr. Yilmaz was apparently very excited about the opportunity to study razor-wing bonding behavior in a controlled environment. He approved the request immediately. Of course he did, Threxnell muttered. Of course the one scientist who thinks everything is a research opportunity gave permission for a cadet to bring back a creature that could kill everyone in this room in under 30 seconds. Harper looked offended. Spitfire wouldn't do that. She's very well behaved. Aren't you, baby? Spitfire chirped, which would have been cute if not for the fact that Threxnell could see her triple rows of serrated teeth. Let us move past the unauthorized adoption of deadly fauna, Threxnell said, pulling up Harper's mission file on his personal display. I need your full debriefing, cadet. The survival assessment is designed to test your ability to endure hostile conditions, demonstrate resourcefulness, and signal for extraction within the designated time frame. Please explain your actions over the past 72 hours. Harper straightened slightly, though Spitfire remained perched on her shoulder like the world's most dangerous parrot. Yes, sir. I was dropped in Sector 9 as assigned at 0600 on day 1. Initial assessment of the environment indicated high acidity in local precipitation, aggressive fauna, and extreme temperatures. I located a cave system approximately 2 kilometers from the drop point and established base camp. Standard protocol so far, Threxnell admitted grudgingly. Continue. I spent the first afternoon conducting reconnaissance and identifying local water sources. The streams are too acidic for consumption, but I found several species of succulent plants that store filtered water. Taste was a bit funky, kind of like if coconut water and battery acid had a baby, but totally drinkable. Voss made a note. Remarkable adaptation. Day 2, I focused on food acquisition. Turns out most of the stuff down there is either poisonous or actively trying to eat you first. But I found these mushroom things growing on the north side of the bigger trees. Ran them through the emergency scanner. Non-toxic to human biochemistry. They were actually pretty good, kind of nutty. I made a soup. You made soup, Threxnell said, his voice carefully neutral. On a Deathworld. Well, yeah. I mean, I had my emergency ration kit, but why waste good supplies when there's food available? Plus, cooking boosted morale. Mental health is important in survival situations, sir. Threxnell could not argue with that logic, much as he wanted to. That's when I met Spitfire, Harper continued, her expression softening as she glanced at the razor wing. She tried to steal my dinner. Got into my camp and just went for the soup like she owned the place. And your response was to befriend it rather than defend yourself. She was just a baby, sir. Look at her. Those big eyes. That little face. Plus, I figured if I could establish a positive relationship with the local apex predator, I would have a significant tactical advantage for the remainder of the assessment. Which turned out to be totally correct, by the way. Spitfire scared off at least 4 other predators that tried to investigate my camp. Tactical advantage, Threxnell echoed. You befriended a monster for tactical advantage. And because she's adorable. But yeah, mostly tactical. The captain pulled up the next section of data. According to your beacon logs, you did not activate extraction protocols until hour 70, nearly the full duration of the assessment. Why not? Harper looked genuinely confused by the question. Sir, the parameters stated we had 72 hours to survive and signal for pickup. I figured I should use the full time to gather as much practical experience as possible. Plus, the weather was really nice on day 3. Verith Prime has 2 suns, so the light is amazing. I found this great spot on a ridge where I could sunbathe and keep watch at the same time. Very efficient. You sunbathed on a Deathworld. Sir, with all due respect, just because a planet is classified as hostile doesn't mean you can't enjoy the nice parts. The sunset was incredible. 3 moons rising while both suns set. Absolutely gorgeous. I took photos. She tapped her datapad, and sure enough, her mission logs included several high-resolution images of Verith Prime's landscape. They were, Threxnell had to admit, objectively stunning. This is highly irregular, he said, though he was running out of steam for his outrage. The survival assessment is meant to be a trial, not a vacation. I survived, didn't I, sir? With 0 injuries, adequate nutrition, successful environmental adaptation, and I even made a friend. Plus, I completed the secondary objectives of cataloging local flora and fauna. My report has 17 new species documented with full behavioral notes. Voss checked the files. She is correct, sir. Very thorough documentation, actually. The xenobiology department is going to love this. Threxnell slumped back in his chair. This was not how these debriefings typically went. Usually cadets limped back exhausted, humbled, grateful to be alive. They did not return glowing with health, accompanied by tamed predators, and acting like they had just come back from a resort, humans. Absolute madness. Fine, he said at last. Cadet Reeves, your assessment is complete. You pass. Exemplary marks for resourcefulness and adaptation. Now please take that creature to Dr. Yilmaz before it decides we look tasty. Harper beamed. Thank you, sir. Come on, Spitfire. Let's go find you some proper food. You are going to love the Academy cafeteria. As Harper left with her lethal companion, Threxnell turned to Voss. Make a note in my personal log. Never, under any circumstances, underestimate what a human considers fun. Already done, sir. And get me that whiskey. Right away, sir. 3 standard weeks after the Verith Prime incident, as it had come to be known around the Academy, Captain Threxnell found himself sitting in the worst possible location in the entire military complex. The Academic Review Board chamber. Where careers went to die and common sense went to be buried in bureaucratic protocol, the chamber was circular, with raised seating arranged in ascending tiers like an ancient amphitheater, because apparently the designers wanted everyone under review to feel appropriately small and judged. Threxnell sat at a lone desk in the center, surrounded by 9 board members representing different species and military branches. Above them, holographic displays flickered with data, incident reports, and what appeared to be a highlight reel of Harper Reeves doing increasingly improbable things. Commandant Jura, a Velkan with silver scales and the disposition of someone who had eaten something sour approximately 30 years ago, and never recovered, peered down at Threxnell with all 3 of her eyes narrowed. Captain, we are here to discuss the irregularities surrounding your recent survival assessment protocols. Specifically, the human. Just the one human? Threxnell asked, trying for levity. We have 43 enrolled currently. Do not test my patience, Captain. You know exactly which human we are discussing. Cadet Harper Reeves. The one who has single-handedly caused 7 different department heads to file requests for either commendations or psychiatric evaluation. Sometimes both. Ah. That human. Yes, Admiral Course, a trillion whose mechanical augments clicked softly as he moved, leaned forward. The reports we have received are, quite frankly, difficult to believe. Please confirm that Cadet Reeves did indeed return from a Class-7 Deathworld with a domesticated apex predator. Confirmed, Admiral. The Razorwing, designation Spitfire, is currently housed in the Xenobiology lab. Dr. Yilmaz has been beside himself with research opportunities. Apparently, Razorwings have never been successfully socialized before. The cadet managed it in approximately 18 hours. Professor Nalith, representing the Academic Sciences Division, made an excited chittering sound. Extraordinary. The behavioral data alone could revolutionize our understanding of predator cognition and bonding mechanisms across species barriers. The creature tried to bite me when I visited the lab, Commandant Jura said flatly. It is not domesticated. It is simply waiting for the optimal moment to strike. Actually, Threxnell said carefully, according to Dr. Yilmaz, the Razorwing only demonstrates aggression toward individuals it perceives as threats to Cadet Reeves. It bit you because you were, and I quote from his report, radiating hostile intent toward its chosen human. I was radiating appropriate skepticism. The Razorwing apparently does not distinguish between skepticism and hostility. Jura's scales flushed an irritated orange. Moving on. Captain, please explain how a cadet under your supervision treated a survival assessment, as if it were a leisure activity. The reports mention sunbathing. Sunbathing, Captain. Threxnell pulled up the relevant files on his datapad. I would like to point out that while Cadet Reeves's methods were unorthodox, they were entirely effective. She successfully survived for the full 72 hours, sustained 0 injuries, maintained proper nutrition and hydration, documented 17 previously uncatalogued species, and demonstrated exceptional adaptation to hostile environment conditions. By every measurable standard, she exceeded assessment parameters. She made friends with something that could kill her. Jura snapped. Which demonstrates exceptional interpersonal skills and tactical thinking, Threxnell countered. He was surprised to find himself defending Harper, but facts were facts. Establishing a positive relationship with the dominant predator in her operational zone gave her a significant survival advantage. It is actually quite brilliant when you analyze it objectively. General Court, a massive Drokian whose species was known for their military prowess and general seriousness about everything, rumbled thoughtfully. The captain makes a valid point. Humans are known for their unusual approach to dangerous fauna. Their homeworld documentation shows centuries of domesticating creatures that began as threats. Wolves into dogs. Various large felines into companions. They even kept venomous reptiles as pets. That does not make it standard military procedure. Juror argued. Perhaps it should be, Court said, his deep voice carrying across the chamber. Adaptability is the cornerstone of military success. If this human found a method that works, we should study it, not condemn it. Admiral Corse tapped his augmented fingers on the desk. There is another matter we need to address. The incidents that occurred after Cadet Reeves returned. Oh no. Here it comes, Threxnal thought. Yes, Juror said, pulling up a new holographic display. Let us discuss those, shall we? Starting with the combat training exercise in Week 2 post-assessment. Captain, what happened? Threxnal sighed. He had been dreading this part. Cadet Reeves was paired with Cadet Torvin, a Chromag, for standard hand-to-hand combat evaluation. The exercise was proceeding normally when Cadet Torvin made what he later described as a friendly gesture of intimidation, standard in Chromag sparring culture. He roared in her face, Lieutenant Commander Vex, the Academy's combat training director, clarified. Full threat display. Chromag tradition for establishing dominance before a match. And Cadet Reeves's response. Juror asked, though the holographic footage was already playing. She laughed, Threxnal admitted. Then she told him he reminded her of her Uncle Brad, when he watched sports on television, which I am told is some form of competitive entertainment on Earth. Then she patted him on the arm and told him he was adorable. The footage showed exactly that. Harper, a full meter shorter than the towering Chromag warrior, grinning up at him like he was a particularly entertaining puppy. Torvin's confusion was visible even across species barriers. His threat display faltered. His mandibles twitched uncertainly. The match lasted 4 to 5 seconds, Vex said, sounding somewhere between impressed and disturbed. Cadet Reeves utilized 17 different combat techniques from at least 6 different Terran martial arts traditions. Cadet Torvin never landed a single hit. At one point she used his own momentum to flip him over her shoulder, which should have been physically impossible given their size difference. Human spinal flexibility and leverage mechanics, Professor Nalith offered helpfully. Quite fascinating, really. Cadet Torvin required 3 hours in medical, Juror said. Not for injuries, but for what Dr. Salen described as a crisis of self-confidence. The human did congratulate him afterward and offer to teach him some of her techniques, Threxnal added. They have been training together regularly since then. Cadet Torvin's combat scores have improved by 23%. Juror looked like she was developing a headache. Threxnal empathized. He had been living with that headache for weeks now. Next incident, the Commandant continued grimly. The astrophysics examination. Ah yes, Professor Nalith said, his enthusiasm undimmed. I administered that test personally. Cadet Reeves completed the practical component in half the allotted time and spent the remaining period, I quote, helping her classmates who looked stressed. She tutored other cadets during an individual examination, Juror said. Technically, she offered friendly suggestions and emotional support, Nalith corrected. And I must say, the collaborative approach resulted in the highest average test scores for that section in 15 cycles. Her peer assistance methodology is remarkably effective. It is cheating. It is creative problem solving within ambiguous parameters, General Court interjected. The examination rules did not explicitly forbid collaboration. They simply stated that each cadet must complete their own work. Which they did. With support. Juror looked ready to explode. Her scales were cycling through colors, so fast she looked like a malfunctioning display screen. And what about the cafeteria incident? Oh, the cafeteria incident. Threxnal had almost managed to forget about that one. The food service AI experienced a malfunction during the evening meal, he explained. It began dispensing nutrient paste exclusively, regardless of species dietary requirements. Many cadets were upset. Some were becoming aggressive due to hunger. And Cadet Reeves took it upon herself to do what, exactly? Juror demanded. She accessed the kitchen facilities. She broke into a restricted area. She used her emergency override credentials, which all cadets possess for crisis situations. She determined that hunger-induced aggression among armed military trainees constituted a developing crisis. And then she cooked for them. Juror's voice had risen significantly. For 300 cadets. Using ingredients from 17 different species dietary stocks. How did she even know what was safe? She asked, Threxnal said simply. She went around with a datapad, asked each species representative what they could eat, cross-referenced the information with the kitchen inventory database, and prepared meals accordingly. It took her 4 hours. She had help from approximately 30 volunteers who were inspired by her initiative. The holographic display showed footage from the cafeteria security systems. Harper, her hair tied back, moving between cooking stations with practiced efficiency. Around her, cadets from a dozen different species chopped, stirred, seasoned, and plated under her enthusiastic direction. The atmosphere looked less like a military academy, and more like some kind of communal celebration. The food was excellent, Lieutenant Commander Vex admitted quietly. I had 3 helpings. The food is not the point. Jura shouted. With respect, General Court said, his tone suggesting he had very little respect for this particular argument. The point is that Cadet Reeves identified a problem, mobilized resources, and solved it effectively. That is exactly what we train military leaders to do. She demonstrated initiative, cultural awareness, logistical planning, and team coordination. All valuable skills. She turned a cafeteria malfunction into a social event. She turned a potential riot into a team-building exercise, Court corrected. I failed to see the problem. Threxnell watched the debate ping-pong back and forth. This was going better than he had expected, actually. At least half the board seemed to view Harper as an asset rather than a problem. That was progress. Admiral Corse raised a metallic hand, and the arguing ceased. Let us address the core question. Captain Threxnell, in your professional opinion, does Cadet Harper Reeves represent a disruption to Academy standards and protocols? Threxnell considered his answer carefully. Admiral, I believe Cadet Reeves represents a challenge to our assumptions about how those standards and protocols should be applied. She follows the spirit of regulations while interpreting their implementation creatively. Some might call that disruption. I prefer to call it innovation. You defended her, Jura said accusingly. 3 weeks ago, you were filing incident reports about her like she was a natural disaster. 3 weeks ago, I did not understand what I was observing, Threxnell admitted. I have spent the intervening time analyzing human behavior patterns, consulting with the cultural integration specialists, and actually talking to Cadet Reeves about her decision-making processes. Humans operate on what they call common sense, which is apparently quite different from what most species consider logical protocol. But it works for them. And increasingly, it is working for the cadets around her. Elaborate, Admiral Corse commanded. Threxnell pulled up a series of performance metrics. Since Cadet Reeves returned from assessment, overall Academy performance indicators have improved across multiple categories. Physical fitness scores are up. Combat training efficiency has increased. Collaborative project completion rates have risen by 18%. Cadets from species that rarely interact are forming study groups and social bonds. And most significantly, reported stress levels and requests for psychological services have decreased by 31%. You are saying one human is responsible for all of that? Jura asked skeptically. I am saying that one human is modeling behavior that other cadets find compelling and wish to emulate. Humans call it leading by example. They are exceptionally good at it because they genuinely enjoy helping others succeed. It is a cultural trait. One that, I might add, makes them ideal candidates for military leadership positions. Professor Nalith was practically vibrating with excitement. This is exactly what the integration program was designed to discover. How different species can contribute unique strengths to create more effective combined forces. The human approach to challenges, their remarkable optimism in adverse conditions, their tendency to befriend rather than dominate, these are all valuable traits. Befriending deadly predators is not a standard military application, Jura said, but her voice had lost some of its certainty. Perhaps it should be, General Court repeated. If humans can look at an apex predator and see a potential ally rather than just a threat, imagine what they can do with species we have considered enemies or obstacles. That perspective could change everything about how we approach conflict resolution and alliance building. The board members looked at each other. Threxnell could see the shift happening. What had started as a disciplinary review was becoming something else entirely. A recognition that maybe, just maybe, humans brought something valuable to the table precisely because they did not fit existing patterns. Admiral Corse leaned back in his chair. Captain Threxnell, recommendation. Continue monitoring Cadet Reeves closely, Threxnell said. Document her methods. Study what makes her approach effective. And for the love of all that is reasonable in this galaxy, stop trying to make her fit into boxes designed for species with completely different psychological frameworks. Let her be human. We might learn something. There was a long silence, then General Court began to laugh, a deep rumbling sound that seemed to come from somewhere around his boots. Out of curiosity, Captain, what changed your opinion? 3 weeks ago, you wanted humans removed from the Academy entirely. Threxnell smiled, his mandibles clicking with genuine amusement. I spent an afternoon with Cadet Reeves and Spitfire, sir. The Razor Wing was nervous because the Xenobiology lab was installing new equipment. Unfamiliar sounds and smells. It was becoming agitated, potentially dangerous. Cadet Reeves sat with that creature for 3 hours, talking to it, keeping it calm, making it feel safe. And I realized something. If a human can make a deadly predator feel safe enough to trust her, imagine what they can do for the soldiers who serve alongside them. Imagine the loyalty they could inspire. The courage they could foster. The hope they could maintain even in impossible situations. He paused, pulling up one final image on the display. It showed Harper in the training yard, surrounded by cadets from 8 different species. She was demonstrating something, gesturing enthusiastically. Every single cadet was watching her with complete attention, and more importantly, they were smiling. Even the Cro-Mag, whose species did not smile easily. Humans are strange, Threxnal continued. They are baffling. They make friends with things that want to kill them. They sunbathe on Deathworlds. They turn crises into parties. But they also make everyone around them want to be better, braver, kinder. And if that is not what we need in military leaders, I do not know what is. Commandant Jura stared at the image for a long moment. Then, slowly, her scales shifted to a resigned blue. Motion to approve continued human integration into academy programs. All in favor. 8 hands, claws, tentacles, and appendages rose. Motion passes, Admiral Course declared. Captain Threxnal, you will continue as Cadet Reeves's primary oversight officer. Document everything. If humans are going to reshape how we think about military training, we need comprehensive records. Yes, sir, Threxnal said, relief flooding through him. As the board members filed out, General Court paused beside Threxnal's desk. Between you and me, Captain, I think the humans are going to be just fine here. It is the rest of us who need to adapt. Respectfully, sir, I think you are absolutely right. Later that evening, Threxnal found Harper in the observation lounge overlooking the training fields. Spitfire was perched on her shoulder as usual, watching the sunset with those eerie multifaceted eyes. Cadet, Threxnal said, approaching carefully. Spitfire tracked his movement, but did not hiss, which he chose to interpret as progress. Captain. Harper turned with that perpetual human smile. What's up? I wanted to inform you that the review board has concluded their assessment. You have been cleared of any violations. Your methods, while unconventional, have been deemed acceptable and even commendable. Oh, cool. I was not worried though. I knew I didn't break any actual rules. Yes, well, you certainly tested the boundaries of interpretation. Harper grinned. That's what we humans do best, sir. Find the space between the rules where interesting things happen. Threxnal found himself clicking his mandibles in what might have been a laugh. Indeed. Carry on, Cadet. And please, try not to befriend anything else that can kill us. No promises, sir. Harper called after him as he left. But I'll do my best. Walking back to his quarters, Threxnal realized he was actually looking forward to seeing what impossible thing Harper would do next. Humans. They were going to revolutionize everything. Or drive everyone absolutely insane, possibly both, probably both, and somehow, that was going to be wonderful.